She says, you know a guy named Tony Jeary? I'm like, no, I don't know any guy named Tony Jeary. She's like, well, you should. And I'm like, okay, well, what's this dude about? She's like, oh, just call him. I don't even know how to say it. Just call the guy. I'm like, okay. So I call the guy, and somehow we get on the phone together. I was driving from Wisconsin, from that fancy place we all went. What's the name of that? Yeah, Kohler. Um, to somewhere in southern Illinois for a baseball tournament, and he wanted to do Zoom, and I was in a car, and I couldn't do Zoom or something, so we just talked. So I hung up. I'm like, oh my God, I never talked to any guy like this in my life before. And all he said was, you got to come see me for a day. I'm like, oh, all right. Where do you live? And he said, I live outside of Dallas. And I said, all right, I'll come see you for a day. And he's like, okay. I go, I got to tell my business partner about you, because he's probably going to want to go too. He goes, all right, you can both come. I'm like, okay. Then he says, all right, well, I'll have this gal Sharon call you to get you on the calendar and pick a day. Let's do it soon. I'm like, yeah, that sounds cool. And he says, okay, my fee's 15 grand. It's non-negotiable, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Have a good day. I'm like, I'm sorry, what did you say? And then he just says, I'll see you in 2 weeks. I got to go. Anyway, the Sharon will call you. I'm like, all right. So then I call Owen. I'm like, oh, this guy, you got to talk to him. I didn't tell Owen about the 15 grand. I just said, you got to talk to this guy. And Owen's like, oh, yeah, I'll talk to him. And then every week I go down to his office. Did you talk to that guy? No, I'm busy. Oh, all right. And then 5 weeks later, he comes up to my office. He's like, hey, we got to go to Dallas. I'm like, what? He goes, I talked to that guy. We got to go to Dallas, and we got to pay the money. I'm like, oh, all right. So we went. So that's how we met him. And it was through this lady, this a pretty lady. But here's what I want to just quickly cover. So it was a blessing that this guy came into our lives. And we're a better company today because of this guy's partnership with us. But it's an investment, right? It's an investment to have Tony on our team. As great of a heart as he has and as big of a Christian guy as he has, he's not the Red Cross, and he's in the for-profit business. And anytime you make an investment, you always got to look at the return on that investment. Is it worth it, right? Whether it's $1,000 or $100,000, you always, if you're going to put in money, you want to hope you get more out. So I started thinking about the value of this investment, and to me, it's the best investment maybe we've ever made at this company. And so I started thinking about 10 things that I learned from Tony that I kind of knew of, and I was probably pretty good at some of them, but probably not great at any of them on the day I met him. And that was being strategic, being encouraging, being focused, being clear, executing daily, being humble, being team-oriented, being accountable, being hopeful, and being healthy. Those are 10 things that I learned from Tony. And I can honestly say 2 years later, I'm better at all 10 of those things than I was the day before this guy came into our world. And that's why I think the investment's valuable.